make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
They just won the division!
But you're telling me that you're paying me Baker Mayfield all that money, like...
Alright, thanks for tuning back into the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Robar, joined by So the first day of NFL free agency was crazy. I was expecting to come in here and talk about how much I hate the franchise tag and how much it ruined free agency, but it was still pretty exciting for day one. Mm-hmm. There's still moves coming in. We're recording this at 9 p.m., so by the end of the episode, there will still be deals being made, but I want to start with Baker Mayfield getting his big contract that he very much deserves. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how he was a defensive tackle in practice last year, and now he's a $100 million starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't know if this was necessarily a good move for Tampa Bay. I mean, they definitely front-loaded the deal, like I was mentioning earlier off the air when I was talking about Saquon and the Eagles, but with Tampa Bay did it very similar, where they front-loaded the deal, but I'm not sure. It's not a move that makes you a Super Bowl contender, in my opinion. I don't think giving him all that money necessarily makes you a Super Bowl contender. And I'm not saying that Baker Mayfield is bad. I just don't think he can elevate you to a position where you need to if you're going to pay a QB that type of money.
So we're already starting off with some hot takes, I see, because that is a hot take. I love this signing. I think that this is exactly what Tampa Bay had to do. When they brought in Baker last year, it was on a prove-it contract. There is nothing else Baker Mayfield could have done to prove his worth in the NFL.
Yeah, honestly.
There's nothing, unless the goal was to make it to the Super Bowl, which was pretty unrealistic, all things considered. When you look at the fact that this team was eliminated last year with Tom Brady by the Cowboys, who we all know are complete frauds in the playoffs, and you bring in Baker and hope that he can live up to that 8-9 success, and yet they win the division, win a great playoff game with the Eagles, and are competitive over the Lions. I don't think Baker could have done anything else to prove his worth. And I get that the contract might be a bit much, but this is what quarterbacks are worth now. And if you want any chance of winning the NFL, you need to have a good quarterback. And Baker is above average, as he's shown at this point in his career. So I think this is a good signing by Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I also think his confidence now is at an all-time high. So I don't think the cycle that he has had in past seasons will continue. And I don't think they had many options. If they wanted to look elsewhere, you could go Justin Fields, but that's so still up in the air, and you just want to lock a quarterback down. So I think this is a great move, and I really want to see what he's going to do the next 3 years.
I don't think this move puts you in contention for a Super Bowl, and I think when you went to the divisional round and put up a fight last year, that's what you're trying to do. And forking over that money to him is not the answer. It's just not.
So what would be the answer?
Trade him, honestly, and get draft picks. And you can, because they need a new direction. I mean, he's not a long-term solution. And with all their aging veterans at this point, I would look to move on from a lot of them and try rebuild from the bottom up, because
they just won the division.
But you're telling me that you're paying me Baker Mayfield all that money. You're not. That's worse than winning the you're being in purgatory.
Yes, so
you're talking about winning the division too. I mean, come on. Let's be real. They beat the Eagles. They beat the Eagles, but come on.
And nearly beat the Lions, who almost beat the 49ers, who would have done the Super Bowl.
They didn't, though.
They didn't. And then this is just the first year. I say give it another year, and you need to pay Baker. Because here's the thing. If you say go into a rebuild, then you're just giving up at that point. At least with Baker, now you still have the contract. You can trade him later if he still shows that he can be good and the team isn't.
But do you think they're going to improve on 9-8? Paying Baker Mayfield $30 million.
I don't think it hurts them at all to pay him this much money after 9-8.
I think it does.
Also, NFL contracts literally don't mean shit.
No,
so they could.
That's not true at all.
They just raised the salary by what was it? Another $50 million?
Yeah, sounds about right.
The salary cap?
They could easily restructure that deal. There are so many ways for teams to get out of their mistakes.
Contracts. I understand that. But what about the solution this year? Are you just sitting at 9? Is your solution to go 9-8 or 10-7 or 8-9? Is that your solution? Is that what your goal is for this year? Because that's what paying Baker Mayfield is. That's what it tells me. That's your goal. You want to pay Baker Mayfield that money.
I need to see where Mike Evans goes.
That's
No, I think
yeah.
he's a good receiver. I think he's a good receiver, and they have bigger issues
Yeah.
than Q. I don't think I'm not saying Baker Mayfield was an issue either, but you're paying him that money, like that could have gone elsewhere to bigger needs, unless they have plans for the draft.
The biggest need that you can possibly have in the NFL is at quarterback, and the Buccaneers just solved that problem. So they can use the rest of the draft to build up on the other needs that you're mentioning.
All right, do you know off the top of your head where his contract ranks among quarterbacks in the NFL?
Middle of the pack, definitely.
If he's 15 to 20, then I'll take it.
You gotta keep in track that there's guys like Daniel Jones making a lot more than him. So
yeah, that's what I'm afraid of them doing, is just paying a lot of money for a QB when like that's not even your problem.
Well, wait, Baker's at least made it to the playoffs 2 separate times.
Yeah,
had to deal with atrocious coaching in Carolina, then went to LA after that.
Jones also has. I mean, he hasn't made the playoffs, but he's dealt with.
He made the playoffs 1 year.
Oh yeah, that's right. He did win that playoff game. You're right.
Okay,
Forgettable playoff.
I did not expect us to spend 6 minutes on Baker, so we're gonna move on. I'm not talking about Kendrick Bourne.
Why don't we talk about Chris Jones? I mean, that's a huge one. We can get this off quick because this is the thing. Like when you were bringing up, and I'm not sure if you agreed with Jack on this, but when we were talking about the Chiefs, and like I believe that they will continue this longevity. Like I know it'll be harder for them. I acknowledge that it'll be harder for them than with New England because they kind of went from like winning those 2 or 3 Super Bowls and then they had Randy Moss that year and then literally it was like Rob Gronkowski started and like I understand it'll be a little bit harder for them, but the Chiefs are just so well ran and like this Chris Jones situation could have been a way bigger problem than it was. Like the Chiefs turned a problem into a positive. He helped them win a Super Bowl, and now they locked him up on a contract. So the Chiefs are just an incredibly well-run organization, and forget Mahomes, forget Andy Reid is retiring. I believe the Chiefs will be a great organization just as long as the Patriots, not 20 years. I'm not going to predict 20 years, but at least within the next 10 years, they will continue the success with Mahomes because they are an incredibly well-run organization.
You know what? I really can't agree with that. Honestly, because I don't really know what's going to happen when Andy Reid retires. And from an owner's perspective, seeing the team report card, they can't stand him. He was the worst.
Andy Reid?
No, the owner.
Lamar.
He was the worst ranked owner in the NFL. So you got to take that in consideration.
But I'm talking about like his, and I understand that. And honestly, I think people take that stuff into account a little bit too much because I think he's just going to build on it. But in terms of building a roster, he's like, and I mean, he obviously doesn't make all the decisions.
Yeah, I just think Andy has a lot of say in that.
Yeah, true, but he's just, I mean, I trust at least within the Andy Reid coaching tree of hiring within and upgrading within. So if they hire, I mean, it kind of sucks they lost Bieniemy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if they could keep their guys, maybe, but like they're all going to get poached.
You think Spagnuolo is going to be the head coach when he retires? It'll probably be
I don't think so. You want to go with an offensive-minded coach.
Yeah, that wouldn't work well with Mahomes, I don't think.
We'll see.
But I think this move does help the Chiefs a lot in the short term. Yeah. I'm not going to speculate on what this will do or won't do for the Chiefs dynasty, but I do know that within the 5 years that Chris Jones is on his contract, the Chiefs defense is much, much better than they would have been without him.
Yeah.
So I think this is a huge move for the Chiefs.
And a plus onto that, they signed Drew Tranquill, who was a pending free agent. They got him on a 3-year deal. And then we'll see what happens with Snead, too. Yeah. I know Snead is a little bit older. It's not necessarily a long-term thing, more of a short-term thing, but he's obviously productive in the short term. So it's going to be big for them to either retain him or get a package for him because their teams will give up things for that type of corner right now, you know?
Okay, we're going to start flying through a couple of these. Zaire Franklin, I think he was the leading tackle this year. Yeah. He's got a 3-year, $31 million extension with the Colts. So is it official that Russell Wilson's a Steeler now?
No.
Okay. So thoughts?
I like it. I mean, the thing is with the Steelers is that they've shown that they can win no matter who the quarterback is. You're not going to win Super Bowls having Kenny Pickett as your quarterback. Yep. But the fact that they can still make the playoffs with all that turmoil shows that if you can get a quarterback that is above average, was the lead at one point, you have a much better shot. And I think that this is the best option the Steelers could have gone with.
Yeah.
They could have gone the Kirk Cousins route, although I don't know how close they ever were with Kirk. It seemed like the Falcons were the one link with him most of the time throughout this free agency before they officially started being able to negotiate. So I think out of all the moves the Steelers could make, this is the one that they had to go with.
Yeah.
And I don't hate it. And the other thing, too, is that the Broncos still pay for most of his salary.
Yeah.
And have to pay for all that dead cap money. So it's really a win-win for the Steelers because if it doesn't work out in the next 3 years, they can dump him without hurting them as much compared to the other teams that had to dump Russ, because the Seahawks also lost a ton of draft picks doing that. So, or the Broncos did. So the Broncos really got screwed, but Seattle also, I feel like, lost. Pretty much every team lost in that trade.
Yeah.
And the Steelers came out the winners because they got Russ, who's better than any quarterback that was in that room to begin the offseason.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the bigger story here is Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
me personally, I think this is the end of the road for him. Like, he hasn't shown
At least
you
in Pittsburgh.
a single thing that you could build on. Like, they have a pretty good off. Like, he had something to work with for, like, skill positions. And doesn't he have the lowest touchdown to completion? Like, it's something. Like, he has the lowest touchdown percentage of any quarterback of all time.
I do know that he has, like touchdowns for as many starts as he had. It's pretty ridiculous.
It's atrocious.
Yeah. I think he has 12 total passing touchdowns in his career.
I think it's less.
Is it less?
I'm pretty sure it's less.
I'll pull it up, but it's around 12. The only moment that I remember of him was the Steelers' comeback against the Raiders after Franco Harris had just died.
Yeah.
That was the moment where I think a lot of people were hoping that this is what Kenny Pickett would turn into, and that was his one shining moment.
Yeah.
And we didn't see anything close to that this year.
And even that game wasn't necessarily like a masterclass or anything like that. I mean, I know he threw an interception at least in that game, but you got to tip your cap for the comeback anyway. But yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I didn't have much to add on the Russell Wilson aspect of it. It was more the Kenny Pickett. I think you hit the nail on the head with the Russell Wilson side, where this is obviously the best move for Pittsburgh. They don't have a quarterback. Like you said, quarterback is always the biggest need if you don't have it. Yeah. So you want to go with the best available option you can get. And like, I don't know where the Steelers are picking exactly, but it's not anywhere where you're like, oh, you draft a young star or anything. They don't necessarily have the capital to trade up to the top, and no one's really on the market right now. Like for everyone, they missed out on their shot last year. Like Lamar Jackson was available. He was available. And like we were saying on this podcast, someone effing trade for this guy if Baltimore's not going to pay him. And Baltimore finally paid him, and he takes him to the AFC Championship game. And now we're talking about all these teams like the Jets and Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh and the Raiders, yada, 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 that all are in bad situations quarterback-wise. I mean, it's a really rough spot for a lot of teams, but Russell Wilson's a good backdoor solution. And Kenny, this is the end of the road for Pickett. I mean, at least there. And some team's going to give him another shot as a backup, so he'll have another chance to prove himself. But that's all you can say on Pittsburgh right now, at least. I mean, we'll see how well Wilson stays healthy and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I agree with you.
So you really hate Kenny Pickett because he had 13 passing touchdowns. So
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, 13, I thought it was less.
13 interceptions as well, though, and his passer rating was 76 this past year. So
Okay. So moving forward, T. Higgins got franchise tagged, but he requested a trade. Do you think he will get traded?
It depends on the buzz, because obviously this is how it works in sports. Like, teams kind of have to inquire and things, and obviously teams are going to be asking about him, but it's up to the Bengals at the end of the day, especially now that they franchise tagged him. I don't think they will. I think they'll try and maybe play it out, maybe get a mid-season deal done, or maybe try and move on next year. But I don't know, because I think the best option is doing everything you can to keep him and extending him.
And if he were to leave, do you think that would really cripple the Bengals that much?
I don't think cripple. It'll be a hurt, because you lose your wide receiver too. It's it's a big deal, but not cripple, because you have Jamar Chase there.
Yeah, but it's not just any wide receiver too, though. And if he is going to leave, if you end up, you can't
hang on to him. You need to trade him. Like, you need to get value out of him. You can't just let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
He's too good to let him walk.
Yeah, I do think that they'll hang on to him at least for this year. Maybe if things go really south again, if Joe Burrow gets hurt like what happened this year, and you realize you're not going to make the playoffs, then maybe you do trade him.
Yeah.
But if everything seems like it's going well, I think you have to hold on to him and then hope you can find some sort of middle ground next year when renegotiations pop up. Because like you said, you don't want to lose him.
Yeah, no.
I guess the other thing too is you could franchise tag him again and then trade him next year early before the draft. But those are, I think, the only options the Bengals have, because losing him in free agency, especially because there's so many QB needy teams within their own division, you don't want to lose him to any of those teams for sure. So you do have to worry about that.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, he's not a guy you can lose, and you have to do everything. And you brought up earlier how the salary cap got raised. So, yeah, they can definitely wait till next year and move on. But the other important thing is both sides are pretty adamant that they don't want to lose each other. Like, T. Higgins released a statement, which, like, you never see that, where, like, if a dude wants out, like, you don't necessarily see it from him directly on his social media. And he said that he really wants to stay, but it's like not working out on both sides. So he's requesting a trade, but he still wants to stay in Cincinnati. Like, I think the writing's on the wall that they'll work something out either late August or next offseason.
So Landon Dickerson's the highest paid guard in history. Michael Pittman Jr. was franchise tagged and then finalized a 3-year, $70 million deal. Do you know who the last Colt was to get franchise tagged?
Ooh.
Was it Andrew Luck?
That was going to be my guess, too.
Jonathan Taylor?
Nope.
No.
He has the most popular show on ESPN.
Oh, it's Pat McAfee?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The great Pat McAfee.
Can you imagine franchise tagging a punter?
I know.
And place kick? That's crazy.
No. Just pay him. Honestly.
He's that good.
Yeah.
Moving forward, DeAndre Swift is leaving the Eagles and going to the Bears. 3 years, $24.5 million deal. I think this is an overpay personally. And I don't know about you guys. I've been saying he's overrated, and I've been catching heat for this. But not like overrated, but like he's as good as the team around him.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
It's not like it's not a hurt to lose him necessarily.
I wouldn't have paid $8 million for Swift. I'm happy he got that money because he honestly did play really well last year. But there were certain things that the Eagles needed from him that he couldn't provide. So I agree that letting him go doesn't really hurt the Eagles, especially, a couple hours later they signed Saquon Barkley. So but I'm happy for Swift. I don't know if it really does much for the Bears either. I don't know if they paid too much, but at the same time, it's like that's quite a lot of money that is going to a position that's not going to upgrade you heavily. Like, you needed a tackle, a QB, something like that.
So the thing is for the Bears, though, is that they had one of the highest cap room of the entire offseason.
So it's like not a dent.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And now that the cap room got raised, basically they can just throw out contracts to anyone that they think is going to help at all.
They were active today.
And the thing is, too, for the Bears, getting Swift and paying him this much, I think most teams wouldn't have done it, especially teams like the Eagles, who you just saw, and the Lions, who let him go before that, didn't have that type of space to pay in that. But the Bears at this point, they need something to re-energize the fan base. Yeah. And I would say signing a guy that got 1,000 rushing yards last year, that's not going to hurt bringing fans out at all. And it also might open it up for whoever the quarterback is. I hope it's Justin Fields still. I don't think that they should go for Caleb Williams. But if they do decide to go for Williams and leave Fields, then you have a really solid running back for a rookie QB, which, again, can't hurt. So I think the Bears made a move that, with the space that they had, it isn't as questionable as if another team had made this signing.
Yeah, on that same note, too, it's easier to develop a run game, like, schematically, when you have two guys that can really run the ball. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, Swift has the ability, I feel like, to make an O-line a little bit better as well. He's a good inside the tackle runner, and sometimes if you can just give him a little sliver, he can make it. It's about staying healthy because he did miss some time towards the end of the season last year. And it's about that. But I think, yeah, you're right. And like, who was their running back last year? I mean, and they've cycled through a lot of guys in the recent years. So yeah, I mean, it's for sure an upgrade at your running back position. And the salary cap is a good point too.
So the Titans are signing Tony Pollard, which
What's
kind
the
of
contract on that?
3 years, 24, which was kind of surprising to me because like the Titans have a terrible offensive line, and he didn't do well with the Cowboys last year, and they have a great offensive line.
Yeah.
I do think it's kind of funny though because like they went all in on him and dumped Zeke, and I know his contract was big, but like now they got Deuce Vaughn back there. So, as an Eagles fan, very funny.
They'll get another running back in the draft.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will. But yeah,
they're not going to rock with Deuce Vaughn.
No, I can't imagine that they decided to do that, or that Deuce Vaughn would stay healthy with that type of workload at his size. But the Cowboys, I think they proved that you do sometimes need two running backs. And the thing is that I think the really unfortunate part for Pollard is that he faked out so many people.
Yeah.
Because we all thought with the limited amount of touches that he got and split carries with Zeke that he was going to be a great running back on his own.
Yeah.
And he's not. And it's pretty clear that he wasn't early off in the gate, and he just got tired out and burned out really early into the season.
Yeah.
So I don't really think the Cowboys made a mistake not keeping Zeke. I just think it shows that trying to find a starting running back is really, really hard to do in the NFL.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do need to have 2 or 3 running backs to carry the workload, and it can't just be one guy. And the Cowboys just tried to cut costs and do it with one guy, and it just didn't work out for them.
Yeah. And also sometimes the answer is not paying a guy or putting all your eggs in one basket, as you said, and just going with the draft and going with the flow, getting fresh legs that haven't been in the NFL. Because we've seen like a lot of young running backs like sort of take over and do better than some older guys, some veteran running backs.
I don't think that's Pollard's problem, though. I just think he's not good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was more talking about on the Cowboys.
Yeah.
It's like, I think when you were moving on from Zeke, instead of just going all in on the Pollard basket, like, and I understand they did. Did they draft Deuce Vaughn? Was he was like
they did, but he was
sixth?
a late. Yeah.
I think going maybe with a running back in the 4th because there's production all over the board in terms of running backs in the draft. Like obviously Chiefs got Pacheco 7th round, so it's about picking the right guys. And I don't think drafting a 5'5" or 5'6" guy in the 6th round is like necessarily the answer to like back up Tony Pollard.
Yeah, David Bakhtiari got released. Does anyone think he's going to go anywhere besides the Jets?
He probably will. I mean, they have their tackle situation handled a little bit with. I mean, Becton is going to be coming off injury again. I'm right on that.
And he wasn't even that good last year.
Yeah, but he has a ton of promise, and like young tackles, I think sometimes you have to go with growing pains here and there. And I don't think Becton like. The thing with tackles also is you can really tell when one just like can't play. A young guy he can't play. Becton can play.
Yeah.
And I think another offseason getting healthy will be good for him. And he'll show next year. Because, he did have a couple pains last year. But I think he's going to be a lot better with age.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to touch on that. I'm sure he'll get re-signed somewhere.
Yeah.
He'll go somewhere where they need him. Like you were just talking about to like Tennessee, like you're kind of starting from scratch on your O-line now, losing Lawan. Like that's a good team for him to go to.
So Gabe Davis went to the Jags, and I think they have the streakiest wide receiver room in the NFL now. Yeah. Like I wouldn't draft a single one of those guys in fantasy. Yeah, but they're not going to have really like a real wide receiver one, I think. It's just going to be one guy's going to go off.
Yeah, I don't understand letting Ridley walk. I feel like
where did he go?
He's not. They let him go, right? He's a free agent.
I'll look it up. Yeah. I'm not sure about that.
I'm pretty sure he's not coming back. I'm pretty sure I saw that.
Well, in the meantime, Christian Wilkins signed a 4-year, $110 million deal to go to the Raiders.
I did see that.
Yeah, that's a really good move for I almost said Oakland, Vegas. Because again, we've talked about this plenty of times, Yeah, he's a free agent.
Yeah. So apparently the Patriots are expected to make a run at Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, okay. Like they're gonna spend money.
Yeah. But when I saw that for the Raiders, I understand that the salary cap is higher now, so you can make these types of signings. I still think that paying someone $110 million
is a lot.
Is too much for a defense, for a lineman.
Yeah.
Any type of lineman. And I think the Eagles might have overpaid a bit on Landon Dickerson. I understand that might be his worth, but he just made it to his first Pro Bowl.
Yep.
And I just, in the mindset that we're just starting to pay skill guys close to that money. Like Christian Kirk's contract, everyone thought that was too much. And that was still under $100 million for a skill player.
Yeah.
And now we're to the point where defensive linemen are getting $110 million contracts. And I think that will cause a problem for some teams, especially teams like the Raiders, where you have a lot of needs. And to spend that much money on one guy on one position that you're kind of solid on already, to me makes little to no sense.
Yep.
I'll say this: it makes a little bit of sense to me because they drafted the Texas Tech dude at the edge position, and then obviously they have Max Crosby locked up, so you didn't need to go there. My guess is that they are going young with their corners and in their secondary and linebacker. I guess they're going to draft those positions, and then like they said, we want to upgrade D tackle as well, and went with Wilkins. And sure, maybe they overpaid. I want to see what the money was per year, because if they spread it out a certain way, like maybe they could have made it work in a way that the 110 isn't as much per year, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like in some way where it doesn't necessarily dent your salary cap too much. And I mean, he's an all-pro, so it makes sense to add him, like him, the player. But yeah, the contract was eye-opening.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the Saquon Barkley trade, and then afterwards I'm just gonna rapid fire these. So I think the Giants' downfall needs to be studied. You pay Daniel Jones like $40 million a year. He gets on the bench. And then you pay Saquon a lot of money, and then he ends up walking, and now you're stuck paying Daniel Jones's contract, and you literally have zero direction at this point.
Yeah, if the Giants hit on their tackle and QB draft picks, we would be talking about them in a much different sense, and they probably would have paid Saquon Barkley that contract by now. But they didn't, and they left Saquon out to dry pretty much. Like they franchise tagged him last year, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken.
They did, yeah.
And he played on the franchise tag behind a terrible O-line with an incompetent defense. And this has been the story for him. Like it feels like he's given everything to the New York Giants organization, and they've, in return, they tried, but they gave him nothing. I'm not going to discredit them for trying. They tried. For sure they tried.
Yep.
They did not give him anything, though, and he gave them everything he had on the field. And a lot of people in the that are associated with the Giants, fans and media-wise, are very, very, very upset about this. Well, I guess we can say alumni, too.
Yeah, well, I wanted to mention that. I think it's disgusting what Tiki Barber
really
said,
ridiculous.
Especially considering that when he left the Giants right before their Super Bowl run, he bashed Tom Coughlin, bashed Eli Manning, said he wasn't a good leader. Then they win the Super Bowl without him. I think that shows exactly the type of person that Tiki Barber is, and that shows the type of loyalty that he had. And the fact that he's saying anything about Saquon, who played under a franchise tag, that played under a terrible offensive line. Yeah. And if Tiki was in that position, he would have retired 5 years before he did.
Yeah, it's completely out of line for anyone to say that. But especially Tiki Barber, like you said, like it's out of line for him to say that about him, because, like you said, Saquon gave everything. He played on his entire rookie deal, never complained, never asked for a trade. Really, he played on the franchise tag, and all this behind, like we said, like incompetent offensive line play, incompetent quarterback.
Well, can we just say an incompetent franchise?
Yeah,
the Giants. Outside the 1 year where Dable shows that he can still be, and look, I give Dable credit.
Yeah,
what he's been able to do with this disaster of an organization.
Yeah,
and he didn't draft Daniel Jones.
Yeah, No.
They did re-sign him under Dable, but Dable also, I think,
Made him look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he fooled me. I thought that Daniel Jones was actually starting to play a little bit better.
Not
Yeah.
me. Can't fool
I know.
me.
Oh, yeah.
Cannot
Not
fool
about
me.
that. Maybe about another guy that's hurt in New York, but we could get to that later, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, going back to this conversation, Dable showed the type of leadership that he has, the type of talent that he can. Even when the Giants aren't that talented, Dable can put a competitive team together.
Mm-hmm.
And even this year, the Giants were pretty competitive at the end.
Yeah.
With a really bad team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that Saquon, all he wanted was a contract.
Oh, yeah. That's
He
all
wanted to stay with the Giants. I think that part
He
is
made that
missed.
clear.
Yeah.
He made that clear.
There's a reason why he was still willing to. I mean, franchise tag, he can't say anything, but he didn't ask for a trade when he got franchise tag because they were hoping, he was hoping to work something out this offseason.
Yeah.
And the Giants just treaded their feet a little bit, and he went to an organization that, look, I know Giants fans are going to hate me for saying this, is well run, that has a really, really good offensive line, even with Jason Kelce retiring, and showed that with two inferior running backs to Saquon still put up nearly 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
So imagine what you can do with an actual good running back or elite running back.
Yeah. And I'll add to you, they also went to him and said, we want you and we are going to pay you this money. And like, we were talking about this before we started the show about how he front-loaded the contract. This is going to be a prove-it contract. If he does not play well or he's hurt, the Eagles will find a way to get out of it. Like, there's wiggle room. But I love this move for them. Like, they need elite talent.
No.
That bottom line. Like, we've talked about corner, linebacker, running back needs. They need elite talent. They got the edge rusher with Huff. And then, yes, adding Saquon Barkley, he's an elite talent. He's shown that he can stay on the field these last 5 years. 5 years, 45 of 52 games played total.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because all things considered.
And and it
he
seemed
took a real beating.
Yeah, it seemed like he was more hurt than he actually was. He's productive and he's healthy. So I think this was a good move for them. And I think it solves a problem on offense because we saw all year, yes, they were able to rush for 1,000 yards last year, but there was something wrong with the run game. There was just something wrong with it. And if Hurts is taking a step back, like running wise, because of his knee problems, adding a guy like Saquon is a necessity.
Yeah.
Because we saw last year that DeAndre Swift couldn't take like a 20 carry load, and Kenny Gainwell couldn't take a 15 carry load. Like you needed to add Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And Saquon Barkley is going to be productive on this O-line.
I will give Giants credit. I feel like they did as good of a job replacing him as they possibly could with Devin Singletary.
Yes, I agree. Singletary had a real bounce back year in Houston.
So I think he will be enough for now.
Yeah. A bridge. Pretty much. Like they always call that bridge players.
But I do want to move on. This is the last topic that I think we're going to spend a lot of time on. Yeah. So Kirk Cousins leaving the Vikings, going to the Falcons. I think this is last year's Jets situation. Like he's walking into a team that's like a quarterback away from really making a run.
Yeah.
And I know the Falcons have been a laughingstock for many years for a lot of reasons that are excluding Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
They got rid of Arthur Smith. They have a lot of skill position players. They got Jesse Bates, Grady Jerry, and Calais Campbell on defense. Like they have a really all-around team, and I feel like they could go as far as Kirk Cousins can take them. And honestly, it might be to pass the first round.
Mm-hmm. I think that a move like this rejuvenates a franchise in a way. Like the Falcons have been drowning in water ever since Matt Ryan left and they blew the lead in the Super Bowl. Like ever since that moment, Atlanta has been treading water and submerging underneath it. So I think this move can rejuvenate a franchise. Like you said, they have good skill position players. Like there is talent there. Mm-hmm. They need a coaching staff that can put in schemes that fits the players and that they can succeed under. And they need a freaking quarterback that can play. Like they have not had good quarterback play since Matt Ryan left in 2016. Well, he didn't leave in 2016, but since Matt Ryan in 2016, they have not had good quarterback play. Mm-hmm. And bringing in a guy like Kirk Cousins, like when you compare him to the Jets situation, I hope he doesn't tear his Achilles in the first 4 plays.
That's what I was going to say.
I think the field is near as bad as MetLife.
Yeah, no, it's not. So I think Kirk Cousins, if he's able to play the way he was playing in those first 4 or 5 games last year before he got hurt, the Falcons will be a good team, at least a competent team, because it just, although they haven't necessarily been 3-13 or 4-12 bad. Like they've been just like bad mediocre.
Yeah.
Like a very bad mediocre team.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. The biggest issue for me is that when you are only quarterback away, that means you're also a quarterback away from your entire season going down the drain,
Yep.
which for the Jets happened on 3 plays.
Yeah.
And I don't think that will happen with the Falcons, like you said, hopefully not.
Mm-hmm.
But there is always that concern. And I mean, they still have Desmond Ridder, right, as the backup. So I don't think they're going to improve because they feel like it does feel like the Jets a little bit because you're a quarterback away. The franchise is keeping your old starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So if something bad is to happen to Kirk Cousins and Desmond Ridder comes back in, your season is done.
Yeah.
Like it is straight done. So
I'm taking Zach over Desmond any day of the week. By the way, any day of the week.
Desmond's not going to straight up lose you games the way Zach Wilson will, though.
Did you see him play last season?
I also watched Zach Wilson play.
Yeah, but Zach Wilson
I feel like they're
also
both on the same level.
no.
Which is
Zach
bad.
Wilson's
Yeah.
game against the Chiefs cannot be ignored. I've never seen Desmond Ridder do that. Never.
He's won games. I mean, I don't know. You're right.
No,
I mean, he's
Bijan
never
Robinson won games.
He's never really.
Desmond Ridder at least helped get his team to the college football playoff. I didn't see Zach Wilson do anything like that.
Yeah, because he played for BYU.
Desmond Ridder played for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They had a good team. They were like what?
BYU had a better team.
They were ranked. Yeah. No, the difference in college was BYU hit like 18 and then started losing.
Yeah.
Cincinnati hit 18 and ran all the way up to number 4.
And still to beat Houston, who had a really good team that year.
Yeah.
So
I don't. To be fair, I don't think either of you are necessarily wrong in saying I'd have Ritter or I've had Wilson over the other. Like, I just think you're having trash. Like, if you're having trash, you're just having trash. Like,
yeah, you're not wrong.
yeah.
So Josh Jacobs is going to the Packers, and Aaron Jones is getting released after that monster performance he had in his final game.
Yeah.
In green and yellow.
Yeah.
So
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either because he's been so unavailable, and like even when he's been there, like he's been great, but like he played like I feel like he's played half the games he's been eligible to play in for like the last couple of years. Especially last year, I think he suited up less than 10 times.
No.
But yeah, I think they're gonna get a more steady running back, and I think that the Packers are. I'm really high on the Packers. I'm as high on the Packers as I am the Texans.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Xavier McKinney's going to the Packers as well, and defense was kind of their question for me. So
Yeah, and they upgraded their safety, losing Savage and adding McKinney there. It's an upgrade. So, yeah. And I agree with you. I love Aaron Jones, so it kind of hurts to see him go from there. Like,
yeah,
I agree with everything he said. Like, he was great when he was on the field, but struggled to stay on. And yeah, Jacobs is a workhorse, and he hasn't really had an injury problem that we see in most running backs. Like, it's weird. Him and Derrick Henry alike, like they are able to stay on the field, which is like completely unlike their position for the average guy. So I'm high on the Packers too. Jacobs is a good ad. And again, if you have the money and you have the availability to do that and add kind of like who are we just talking about? The Bears.
No.
It's kind of you have the money and it's like you're going to lose Jones. You don't have anything in Chicago. Like, why not just add him and pay him that money? I agree. So I think it's a good move for them.
the Raiders are adding Gardner Minshew, and he's going to compete against AOC for the starting job. He's making a lot for a potential backup. 2 years, $25 million.
Yeah,
that's
a lot. I think he's going to start. Honestly.
Yeah, same.
I think I agree with you. They're going to go into camp and maybe they'll be equal battling it out. But I think Minshew earns it because he's better. He's a more reliable option. And not saying he's reliable because I don't really think he is, but he is more reliable than having Aiden O'Connell as your starter. So I think going in with Minshew is a good move. And yeah, so that'll be about $13 million per year. It is quite a lot for a guy who might not be starting in week 10.
Mm-hmm.
Might get beaten out or benched. So you're right. I think they kind of overpaid in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't really trust anything that the Raiders are doing right now.
Yep.
So
They're
I
being
think
very odd with their money.
Yeah, and they had been for a little while with Garoppolo last year, and now they're like, yeah, we don't really want you anymore. So, yeah, I just think that the Raiders are just sort of hey, you know what? They're in Vegas now, so you might as well gamble, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like they're just throwing their money away, and they just need to fold if we're sticking with the gambling
They
metaphor.
definitely came into some new money.
Yeah.
Brian Burns got a franchise tagged and trade to the Giants for a couple picks, and he signed a massive contract. I haven't really tuned into a lot of Panthers games, so I'm not really familiar with this game.
He's really good.
Really good.
Yeah, he's really good. This is a great move for them. They needed a guy to put alongside Kayvon Thibodeau because I think Thibodeau showed he's good, but he's not a number one edge guy. I think they bring in Brian Burns. He's going to be their number one edge guy, and he'll put up a lot of production in New York. That's a great ad for their defense. I really like that move. And they didn't give up much either. The second and the fifth. I think that's
not too bad.
Really positive move.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that one either.
Okay, this was the funniest thing that I saw today. Austin Eckler going to the Commanders for 2 years, $11 million.
Yeah.
That was just the most random signing so far, in my opinion. I thought it good for the Commanders though, because they got like a really, really dynamic running back for such a little price.
If he can stay healthy.
Yeah, if he could stay healthy, but in 7 seasons he had 69 touchdowns. Like that cannot be ignored.
No.
I also think you have to acknowledge when someone's hit a cliff.
He could have another couple seasons left, I think.
I don't know.
Maybe not with the Commanders.
Maybe not with the Commanders. But yeah, 5.5 considering what some of these running backs got this offseason.
Okay, yeah. You're right. It doesn't move a needle for me, but I'm not saying it's a bad signing because 5.5. Yeah.
The Patriots are just so embarrassing too. Jacoby Brissett got signed for $8 million 1 year.
That's backup money at this point.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're a quarterback making running back money, that means you're a backup.
Yeah.
Backups are now.
$8 million.
They used to be a really good job when you're 2 years $4 million. Now you're getting 1 for $8.
Yeah.
Really is the best job in America.
There literally used to be teams paying their backup QB $900K.
Yeah.
$8 million.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Jacoby Brissett. So who do you think's going to start in New England?
Whoever they draft.
Okay, they're
Probably
going to draft QB3.
Yeah.
Would you go MHJ?
No, because who's going to throw to him?
But what if it's Williams and May go 1 and 2? And you have to go Jaden Daniels.
Well, if I'm the Patriots, I'm not even looking at Caleb Williams personally. So I don't know if Jaden McDaniels goes, then or Jaden Daniels. Yeah. I said that shit wrong. I'm cutting that out. Yeah, but if he goes, then I don't know. They haven't been able to retain a receiver, so that, and he's very. Yeah. That's something you gotta consider. I would probably go quarterback though, because
I know. Yeah, I know. It's just so tempting because it's when you have a guy like him, if it almost feels like I can throw anyone at quarterback and they'll be all right.
Jacoby Brissett's not a bad. Yeah, he's not.
If Jacoby Brissett had Justin Jefferson, because that's my comp to Harrison Jr. If he had Justin Jefferson with
Brissett does
the
fine.
Patriots O-line, I think you'd be okay.
Brissett's proved, I think, enough to me that he can be a bridge quarterback for a couple of seasons. And I mean, you can't be nearly as bad as the quarterback playing New England has been the last couple of years. So might as well stick the guy that started it off.
And like you said, Jack, they've had no one. They've never been able to really find and keep a receiver. They had Kendrick Bourne, who he's staying there, right?
Yeah, but that's Kendrick Bourne.
He's a 3.
Scheme of things.
He's a 2 or 3, so I'll give them that.
2 or 3 New England. Let's be clear about that.
But you need a number 1, so maybe the upgrade you need in your passing offense is a receiver and not a QB. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe.
Because again, you got to put into account the rookie deal type of thing too.
Yeah, I'm yawning talking about the Patriots, but do you guys have anything else?
Not in NFL, no.
No, I wanted to quickly touch on the Ben Simmons news that came out because.
Oh yeah.
He's officially done for the season again.
This surprises no one.
Wow.
No. But it just goes to show that certain people can't get everything right?
Yeah.
No.
I gotta say, I feel bad for him, man. I do wish that he would have had a better career after the Sixers.
I mean,
not in the sense that he was necessarily shoving it in Philly's face, but I hope he leaves Brooklyn and does well somewhere else.
How many more years is he on contract?
This is his last year.
I think he might be a free agent.
Yeah, what do you mean somewhere else? He's done. He's not. No one's giving him a third chance.
Yeah, I know.
Brooklyn was his second chance, and he blew it.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that was his fault for not being healthy, if it was his trainer's fault. Somehow his agent had to apologize for it. So whoever is to blame for it, and for me, most of it goes to the guy who can't stay healthy. That's your fault, especially because these back issues started up when you were not playing games.
Yeah.
And trying to get paid for not playing games.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem torn up about it either.
No!
So, like, I mean, he will get a third chance because, like, you're not going to, like, you'd offer him, like, a vet minimum.
Yeah.
Like, he's too good of a player to just not sign.
Is he?
Maybe. No,
He's better than a lot of vet minimum players.
I agree with that, but I think Aiden has a point. Like I think he might need to go overseas and prove that he's like changed and just like willing to.
I don't think his
ego would let him go overseas.
I do not think that he's going to play another professional basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think if this back injury is as bad as they've made it out to be, the fact that he's missed.
He can't play.
I mean, I think they're going to keep trying to say he can play and keep trying to just rack up. And this is the thing that irritates me about guys like this. If you're this hurt, that you're missing this much time, why should you keep trying to play other than the fact that you're trying to get money? You're clearly not trying to build a career. You're not going to be successful because you keep getting hurt. So all you're doing is stealing teams' money. Mm-hmm. I will say, though, if your team dumb enough to pay someone like this, that's on you.
Yeah. And it also is a shame because there are guys who literally aren't trying to milk their team.
Yeah.
Like they are just like getting screwed with injuries. And,
yeah.
And like it shows that it is like killing them. Like a guy like Jeremy Lin, when he was kept trying to get back and then broke his leg. Like you feel for those guys.
Yeah.
But then like there's guys like Ben Simmons, like you're saying, like there's I don't know. Yeah, I take back that I feel bad for.
Well, it's the same thing in baseball with Anthony Rendon right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
who is got a huge contract with the Angels,
and he's
has done nothing.
That he doesn't care about baseball.
And look, I understand that the question was phrased, like, is baseball your top priority? And said, no, my family's always been my top priority. But that's a lot easier to say when you're winning World Series and are the best player in baseball when you're not getting paid.
And you know what he meant. You know what
I know what he meant, but the opposites look so bad when you're always hurt. You can't play.
No, not Rendon. I meant Rendon knows what the reporter meant.
Oh yeah,
asking You know what I mean? Like he knows the reporter saying, "Do you give a fuck?
Yeah.
Like, do you give a flying fuck about baseball right now?" And Rendon was pretty much like, meh.
Yeah,
I like my.
I'll take my $250 million guarantee contract. Why not?
Yeah, that pissed me off too. And he was so good with the Nationals.
Yeah,
so I was happy he went to the Angels.
Well, that's the thing that's frustrating about Ben Simmons is that the last time we seen him on the court, yes, he didn't play well against Atlanta, and yes, it had been COVID and a bunch of other things that had happened. Mm-hmm. But he'd still played okay in the Washington series before Atlanta. He still scored a 42-point game against the Jazz when Embiid was out, so he clearly showed that he cared a little bit. And then after he got hurt and realized that he can just sort of get away with not playing and asking out, and then went to the Knicks and screwed them over too. It's sort of like, how many times can you keep doing this and think that everyone's gonna like feel bad for you?
It's like just so stupid because like if he wants money, like you don't have to do much. Like with his talent. You don't have to do much to get contracts.
Just to play.
Yeah, you literally just have to play. And if money's all you're after, you're not doing it the right way at all because, like, seriously, he is one of the most gifted basketball players of all time.
The thing is that for the Sixers' purposes, since he played with the Sixers, Tobias Harris' contract is awful.
Yeah.
Like, it's a terrible contract. But I will not bash Tobias Harris because he still shows up and plays to the best of his abilities. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, the Sixers overpaid him for his abilities, but that's not Tobias Harris' fault.
He always gives his all.
Yeah, and again, his all is 17 to 18 points a night, and he's not an all-star, and he's a above average, like, fourth role. He tries to be between third and fourth. But I know that about Tobias Harris, and I will criticize him for getting overpaid because at least he's still trying. Yeah. It's guys that are overpaid and then give up, like Albert Hainsworth on Washington when he got his huge contract from Tennessee and give up. Guys like that, I can't stand. Can't stand them.
And like you can clip this shit too, but all the people that bashed Philadelphia and Philadelphia fans for the Ben Simmons fiasco, Now they're sitting on their hands saying nothing because Ben Simmons is sitting out all this time and he's pulling the same shit that he pulled in Philadelphia. And all of them tried to say, oh, Philadelphia ruined him. It was the fans. Even though Ben Simmons said it wasn't the fans.
Yeah.
And
and there's no fans in Brooklyn.
Yeah. now you're seeing it. And the reason this isn't getting talked about is because, like you said, it's Brooklyn and there's no fans there.
Mm-hmm.
If this was in Philadelphia, or if he got traded to the Knicks,
Yeah. Oh my
this
gosh.
would be a whole story.
I mean,
or the Lakers. Could you imagine if he was a Laker right now? If Ben Simmons was a Laker,
that's where he wanted to go to.
yeah,
Yeah, it would have been bad. I mean, the New York media is already destroying him for it, and it's not even like the prime time New York people because they're more focused on that the Knicks just lost to the Sixers with neither team scoring 80 points.
yeah, that was embarrassing.
Luka scored more
I
points
actually,
than the
don't
Knicks
even wanna-
this season.
Crazy.
Normally, I'd be like, "Oh, we beat the Knicks," like bragging, but I'm like,
To be fair, we were missing a couple of our best players, and they still had Jalen Brunson and.
but
They
it's
were
crazy.
out a couple guys, but they
were out a couple guys too, but they still had Brunson.
It is crazy that a rotation of 12 NBA players couldn't score 80 points on both sides of the
I will say though,
basketball.
this is what NBA fans have been asking for, and now they finally get it. It's like, oh, it must have been the most boring game in the world. So wait, you guys don't win 130-point games, but the moment there's a defensive game with those teams scoring under 80,
They get
then there's a problem. So what, are you guys okay between like the 85-100 range? Is that what you're comfortable with? Like, let's figure this out.
All
Come on,
games
people.
must be 90 to 100 points. You must score 90 to 105. That's the limit.
Do you guys have anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have a lot to talk about with conference tournament this week. So
Yeah. So that'll do it for this week. We'll catch you next week.